Uh, Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Dylan Fox. I'm the Director of Operations for XR Access at Cornell Tech. I'm here with Pierce. Pierce, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dylan. My name is Pierce Clark. I'm the Director of Research and Best Practices at XR Association. We're a DC-based trade association, and we kind of advocate for responsible development of XR at large. Can we also mute too everybody else in the crowd, maybe other than the speakers? Or if there's like questions or the discussion pops up. I'd like to say too, we're very excited to kick off this now our fifth community discussion. We've held topics on audio cues in XR and closed captioning and speech to text and text to speech. The summaries of all of which are found on the XR Access website and YouTube channel. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Dylan.
Yeah. So for those who are unfamiliar with our community discussions, the format we go with is it's an hour and a half event to give us a little bit of wiggle room, and we're going to have our three featured speakers talk each for about 10 minutes, just a little bit about their research and some of the things they see as kind of pressing issues in this area, which today is AI accessibility assistance. And then the rest of the time should be 45 minutes to an hour, is going to be for us to talk as a community, figure out best practices, talk about the current kind of big unanswered questions and open needs. And we really enjoy doing these because, as I was saying before, like we get folks from all over that come in all kinds of different expertise, and it's this big interdisciplinary melting pot. Um, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers real quick, and then why don't we go in that order as well. So Yuhang Zhao is an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, with focuses on human-computer interaction, accessibility, augmented and virtual reality, and AI-powered interactive systems. Following that will be Andy Slater, who is an artist and researcher with Virtual Access Lab, who has a master's in sounds arts and industries from Northwestern University, BFA from the School of Art Institute of Chicago, and has done a lot of really awesome work on blind focused VR exhibits. And then finally, Thomas Logan, who is the owner of Equal Entry and for 20 years has helped organizations create technology solutions that work for folks with disabilities. So Yuhang, you've got 10 minutes. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Dylan. I'll share my screen then. Yeah, let me know if you can see it. Great. So hi, everyone. Very glad to be here talking about my research. So I'm an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I lead the Medability Research Lab, where we investigate how to design and develop effective assistive technologies for people with disabilities. And one important line of our research is to leverage the state-of-the-art AI and also extended reality technologies to support blind and low vision users. So AI technology has been advancing really quickly with powerful capability of visual interpretation, reasoning, and then combined with XR technology that incorporates sensing, displaying techniques to retrieve information from the surrounding environment, as well as presenting multi-module feedback. Such a technology, specifically AI-powered XR, has presented great potential to enable blind and low vision users to access visual information efficiently, but also immersively so that they can complete different tasks, achieving different experiences that they may not be able to before. So my research seeks to see this opportunity and explore how we can best leverage AI technology and develop the AI-powered XR systems to support blind and low vision users. So our research specifically include systems that addresses both users' challenges in the real world, as well as how we can design technologies to make the emerging virtual world accessible. And I'm going to give one example for each, but with more focus on our work for VR accessibility. So I'll start with the design and development of an AR powered augmented reality system to support low vision people to facilitate cooking tasks. So when saying low vision people, we refer to people who experience visual impairments, but they still have some remaining vision, and many times they prefer using their vision in their daily life. And the reason we focus on cooking is because it's a very important, dynamic, and also complex task of daily activities of daily living. It's very important for people's independence, but it's also very challenging and risky for people with low vision. And via context inquiry study with 10 blind and low vision people, we sort of do a comparison between 4 completely blind users and 6 low vision people. And we identified some very unique challenges faced by people with visual impairments. And one of them is to use and interact with different cooking tools. In the kitchen environment, for example, how you use a knife to cut different ingredients, how you use the hot pans, and all of these process is very challenging and sometimes pose risks to people with low vision. And there is unfortunately no effective low vision aids to support people. So to address this problem, we designed an AI-based augmented reality system called Cooker. It is a wearable head-mounted pass-through AR system. And unlike the common AR system that would recognize and enhance a whole object, our system recognizes the affordance of different kitchen tools, meaning that the interactive components of the different tools. For example, if we are referring to a knife, and then we can distinguish the knife blade versus the knife handle, so that we can then generate visual augmentations to support low vision people to better distinguish these different interactive area and grasp and use these tools more efficiently and also safely. So here is the image showing our system. So it's a head-mounted system that we combine a Z mini stereo camera to capture the surrounding environment, both the RGB information and the depth information. And we combine it with the Oculus Quest 2 to display both the surrounding environment and our visual augmentations. And this headset is connected to a very powerful GPU laptop to conduct the recognitions of different affordance area of the different tools. And our augmentations distinguish these different areas, and specifically we're using a green AR overlay to represent the graspable area, and the pinkish red color overlay on top of the risky area that people's hand should avoid. So this is our system design, and our evaluation with 10 Loven users have demonstrated the effectiveness of our cooker system in enabling low vision people to quickly and safely grasping different kitchen tools, and also indicate that people do prefer the affordance augmentation over the conventional whole object augmentations when they're using AR systems. Well, I won't go into too much details of how we implement such a system, but we did open source our kitchen tool affordance data set and also our fine-tuned recognition model on GitHub. Later, I'm going to put this in the chat, but you can also find the link on my slides here. And beyond our systems to support real-world tasks, we also look into how we can better leverage AI to make the virtual world, virtual reality, more accessible to blind users. So VR has been challenging to blind people due to its visually dominant nature. Well, there has been many prior research where interaction techniques created to provide audio and haptic feedback to enable blind users to explore and navigate a VR space. But the issue is they usually focus on the interaction design in itself and mostly relying on VR developers to incorporate these technologies in their development process. However, unfortunately, our interview with 25 XR developers in the industry have reviewed that accessibility integration is not really a priority because of many different reasons. For example, effort, cost, relatively small population and so on, especially in this relatively immature VR industry. So our research tried to fill this gap by thinking about how we can come up with a solution that is the post hoc, so that we do not really need to rely on developers' effort to make all these VR applications accessible. So we present VR Sight, which is an AI-driven system, or you can see this as a pipeline. We can automatically stream the visual content on any VR head-mounted display to a server, automatically recognize all these visual content via state-of-the-art vision foundation models and large language models. And then we can provide spatial audio and effective descriptions that is spoken in different emotions and tones that map to the VR scene's atmosphere to create immersive experience. And via this pipeline, our system can be applied to any VR applications running on a VR headset that is post hoc without any developer effort. So our system design consider not only providing blind users sufficient information from the VR environment, but also consider how we can better enable them in interactions, also maintain immersive experience in the VR environment, as well as how we can protect their safety when interacting in the VR scene. So as a result, we support 4 different features in VR Sight to demonstrate the capability of our system, including effective scene overview, scene sweep, aim, assist, and guarding alert. So these are the names of the 4 features, but I'll just go through them quickly one by one to tell you more about how they work and what are the technologies behind it. So the first feature is effective scene overview, where we leverage GPT to generate a scene description of the user's current view based on their request. But beyond these basic descriptions, we also seek to enhance users' immersion by incorporating emotions into the verbal description so that we can better reflect the current scene atmosphere. So to do that, besides the content recognition, we also use GPT to detect the tone of the scene. For example, is it neutral, cheerful, fearful, urgent, and so on. And then we can leverage the Azure neural text-to-speech engine to generate audio feedback with the corresponding emotion to describe the scene to the user. So that's effective scene overview, but of course, only providing generic descriptions of the scene wouldn't be sufficient for user to better interact with the different objects. So that we also support a scene sweep feature to enable users to better understand what are the different objects or important objects in the scene. So to implement such a feature, we tend to leverage some computer vision technologies to recognize the different virtual elements in the scene. But the issue here is it could be very difficult to do so because many different virtual elements in VR look different from the real world environment. And there could also be some unique virtual elements that do not really exist in the real world, which makes the pre-trained AI models to be very difficult to function well in the VR environment, consider the lack of existing data set in the VR context. Then what objects should we recognize and how should we collect the data set to support recognition in VR environment? And to address this problem, this is another contribution from our project, is to construct a data set for the VR context. And we specifically focused on the social VR scenarios, considering the very complex or diverse type of VR applications. So we collect different visual scenes, images from 15 commonly used social VR applications, for example, VR chat, rec room, and so on, and manually annotate the different major objects on these different images. And our data set resulted in 16,905 images with 33 object classes that are categorized into 6 different categories. For example, avatars in terms of human versus non-human avatars, seating area, which is also important in social VR, for example, campfire, single seats, multiple seats, and some unique elements in VR, for example, the controls, including virtual hands, controllers, dashboard, and so on. So that our data set would include all of these unique elements in social VR to support our recognition model. And we fine-tuned a ULO V8 model for VR object detection. And also combined with the depth detection in the environment, we're using this depth anything V2 deep learning model to infer the depth of each of the recognized objects so that we are able to render spatial audio to announce the different objects from its corresponding position. And all of these are post hoc based on any currently running applications on the headset. And beyond, so we also seek to further support people's interaction so that people can better understand the details of certain objects. And we designed this aim assist feature that is based on either laser pointing or free-form hand exploration in the VR environment, also depending on what the original app would support. For example, if the original app provides this laser pointing function extruded from the user controller or their virtual hand, and then we can use line extraction to detect the laser and then verbally describe the object that is collided with the laser. But if this app only support hand interaction directly, and we would detect the position of the virtual hand and then describe the different objects near the user's hand's position.
Young, this is really
Yes.
awesome work, but I just want to make sure we have time for community discussion. So if you could wrap it up in the next minute or two, I
Yes,
appreciate it. Thank
this
you.
is the last feature I'm going to talk about, which is Guardian Alert, which we care about people's safety as well. And if you have experience with VR, they usually generate this Guardian system then showing the boundary of the system if people get too far away, try hitting a real world object or getting out of the virtual boundary you have set up. That's why our system can also detect the visual Guardian boundary in the system, and when they're visible enough, meaning that the user is close enough, and then we can also render a spatial audio alert. So this is a video showing that you can see when the virtual hands is getting near to the boundary and then close to the boundary, and we hear the audio feedback. And this is an ongoing project that we have run a pilot study with 3 low vision blind users and find out our system can help address some key challenges in social VR, for example, identifying open space to sit and so on. So that would wrap up my talk today that I talk about 2 projects, one for real world, the other for the virtual world. And I'd be happy to discuss more about them later in the discussion. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Yuhang. This is awesome research and work, and it's so good to hear about the positive stuff you guys are doing over there. So big thanks. I'm sure that there are some ideas percolating around with everybody, and we'd like to ask to hold on to questions or post them in the chat, and we'll make a log of them and dive into them after the next 2 speakers have gone. And with that, I'd like to quickly pass the baton next to Andy Slater. Andy, feel free to take it away.
Hi. Hey, everybody. I'm Andy Slater. I am blind, and I think that's probably important to the discussion. I am a sound designer and access lead for an immersive design company called Fair Worlds. I also do a lot of consultation and advising with art museums and galleries and that sort of thing, not only with describing the work, visual work, or doing live audio description for performance and stuff, but also like blind navigation and autonomy in those spaces. I'm also working artist, installation artist, media artist. I do a bunch of different stuff, and a lot of it is in the XR space. And so, you know, being blind, working in the industry, and having my own practice, and wanting to use these tools, and often coming up with hitting really hard brick walls sometimes, trying to get ahead and figure out solutions. We all know that that's frustrating, but at the same time, it also gives me this sort of perspective to think speculatively of what the future might hold and what kind of ideas and techniques and stuff need to be implemented in certain things, especially when we're working with XR or any kind of digital accessibility. And so that's some of what I'll be talking about is kind of, what could work, and me not being a developer necessarily, or not knowing a whole lot about how a lot of things on that end work. What's a heavy lift and what's kind of an easy solution. So I might just be proposing these ideas that might take 40 years to complete, or maybe it might just be something that somebody in the community could be like, oh yeah, you just need to throw in this code or something like that. So I invite any kind of add-ons to any of the things that I'm talking about today. I'd like to talk first about museum access. Blind people, and this is going to be, I guess, specifically for art museums, but it really could be used in any kind of case, I guess. But like historically, blind folks aren't always either invited or feel comfortable or feel invited in an art museum or an art gallery space or something that is very ocular centric and carries a lot of visual art and that sort of thing. And so I've always felt that, I think we all do, that image description is really important. That's kind of a way that we can certainly experience art. And a lot of the times these descriptions and stuff are really kind of boring and objective, either come from like an art historian sort of background, or through somebody that felt they needed to throw everything together last minute and may not have a whole lot of experience or training in doing any kind of description. I personally like subjective and weird and poetic descriptions, also mixed alongside with something maybe more objective or historic. And I think that if we're thinking about using any kind of XR or AR in a museum space, giving those kind of opportunities where you can hear descriptions, and even like from the curator or the artist themselves, giving extra bits of detail that scanning a QR code and like bumbling around through the gallery itself doesn't offer, right? So with AR, let's say you have your glasses or something like that, you'd be able to safely navigate maybe, and then even get information on whatever artwork is in the room or that you're standing in front of, using either like object recognition or even like visual positioning system or something like that. Being able to hear different descriptions, different voices, different kinds of things, being able to customize it yourself, being able to walk around a space, and even, I'm sorry, hold on a second. I spilled my coffee. Even getting any other kind of augmented details and that sort of thing, I think is really important. And I think that these sort of ideas can work over into storytelling opportunities in different spaces. At Fair Worlds, we have developed these AR walking tours, so to speak. We have one at the Seattle Center, and one currently in development at Central Park, and it's called Spacetime Adventure Tour, and it's really fun, and it's playful, and there's a lot of image descriptions and things like that written into the script that the tour guide gives and the narrative. But one thing that we're thinking about for the future is trying to implement, these like GPTs, or these sort of these extensions within the app, so you don't have to go externally to go to maybe Be My Eyes or PickyBot or something like that to get descriptions. Like being able to embed it into the app itself and having access to any of these sort of like open source things, or gaining some kind of license or something like that, could be really important. And I think that not only for like our own projects, but for giving other people the opportunity to create their own thing, right? I feel like myself, I'm always juggling between one thing or the next. having to close out an app to go into something else, having to download a video and bringing it into PickyBot. If you're not sure, PickyBot, it's PICCYBOT, and it's an image and video description tool that uses a bunch of different GPT models. Like it's got OpenAI, it's got DeepSeek, it's got Gemini, it's got a bunch of different ones you can use that will all provide like different types of descriptions, and you can customize whether you want it to be sound like a Gen Z person using a whole bunch of slang that I don't understand, like Riz or giving or whatever whatever makes me feel like an old man, or then something that is really more straight to the point, which again, gives different versions of descriptions from different sort of voices and that sort of thing. Having to download the video, get all of that, and then go back into something else on the fly while I'm out somewhere is really, it's really distracting. And I think that a lot of the times, it's just one of those exhausting things that we have to deal with as blind people, trying to juggle all these tools, hopping over to seeing AI in order to read a sign, or I guess if you're using your meta glasses, doing that sort of thing, but juggling. And so I think that integrating these things, having the ability to do that into, one app is going to be the most important thing, especially, moving forward in these spaces like museums or in public spaces with some kind of like storytelling or other things that you might be using. And, this could all work into games as well, right? If you had an AI assistant that when you walk into a 3D space or a virtual space and it gives you an idea of what's in the room and you somehow can interact with it just there on the fly without having to, get any other kind of assistance. Like if something is telling you the room is this big, these objects are here, this NPC is moving towards you, and that sort of thing, which I believe we've seen some in some examples of games and that sort of thing, but none of it necessarily seems to be intuitive or practical. And I think that if you were able to incorporate some kind of thing like this using machine learning that gets accustomed to the user, to the player, to yourself, and maybe you want a description of a space, but you just want a really quick one. It's used to you asking for those sort of things. Just like if you've had conversations with ChatGPT, it gets to know you. And I think giving these opportunities to if you're a user, sorry, I spilled coffee again. Giving these opportunities and these options will make things just seem easier. And I think that's really kind of what I want to get at, is like, what is going to make these experiences and opportunities easier for blind users and just more customized and personable, so that you're not fumbling around with something that might even be based in ableism or medical model and those sort of things. My time is up, and I feel like I rambled, but we have time in the Q&A. So yeah, thanks. I got to clean this coffee up.
Thank you, Andy. No, that is some fantastic fuel for the conversation, I think. Yeah, drink the rest of your coffee before you spill it. Then I'm 100% sure we'll come back to some of these during the main discussion. But first, I want to give our last featured speaker a chance. Thomas, take it away.
Great. Hello, everyone. Won't take any sips of any liquid, so no spilling here, I hope. All right, I'm going to show you all the presentation today. I think it's one very good for conversation. I'm excited to see so many people here in the group, either that I've met or not. I'm the owner of a company, Equal Entry, and I'm deciding why humans always matter with AI. I'm going to always try to be very topical. So today I wanted to talk about, there's a success criterion, getting geeky for 1 second, for the accessibility standards, about having captions for live presentations, like me talking right now. And the idea is that we should have captions provided, synchronized text for all audio content in real-time videos. So this is a kind of hot topic on social media right now. There's a topic, CART is dead, long live ASR. CART stands for Communication Access Real-Time Translation, and ASR standing for Automatic Speech Recognition, and automatic speech recognition being an application of artificial intelligence. This person, Kate Kalsivic from Fable, talked about, she's a person who is deaf or hard of hearing. I recently attended 11 sessions at a conference, each with a different stenographer, basically a human person who is listening to the presentation and typing the communication real time onto the screen. She said the quality varied between the different individuals who were providing the CART in the 11 sessions, but even the most accurate and fastest stenographer couldn't match my experience with ASR, automatic speech recognition. So in this particular discussion topic, and the heading is very sensational, I think it's a good one to get that discussion. It's a good one for us to have a discussion about. This is basically saying, at this point, for providing live translation or meeting the Web Content Accessibility Guideline criterion for 1.2.4 live captions, it's better to use AI than to use a human. Honestly, if you read the full article, which I'll paste into our chat after I finish this 10 minutes, so you all can see the whole conversation and maybe conversate there as well. There's a lot of other nuance in this article other than just the headline. But I think it was interesting just to talk about, because this has been something that had been very interesting, or still is very interesting to me. I had done work on this as well for thinking about this in the context of multilingual, and the idea that why don't we just make this more complicated? We want to have live captions, but we also want to have live captions in multiple languages, because we may have more than people attending from different parts of the world where English is not the first language. And one of the cool things with AI technologies is the ability to also live translate on the fly into any language. And so this was a presentation I did in the past, and on the screen I have some text in English that says provide subtitles for dialogue and sound effects. And then a human translated that into Japanese kanji characters on the screen. Oh, I didn't share. Let me share my screen again with sound. Share with sound. One of the cool VR experiences that no longer is alive today was AltSpace, which was purchased by Microsoft. They don't have this technology anymore, but one of the ideas in AltSpace was when we meet up as virtual avatars in a shared space, such as like the meeting we are in today, we could turn on a feature where we would have captions shown in our chosen language, and we could be translating though from any language that that person was speaking. Not really every language, but we could say my spoken language is English, but I want to view the captions in Japanese, or for example, my spoken language is English and I want to view the captions in English. But we made a screen demo of.
Also wir sprechen hier Deutsch und es wird auf Englisch übersetzt.
Yeah, that looks good.
Ja, und das ist sogar korrekt. Ich sehe es in meinem eigenen Text unten.
So basically on the screen, we had a person, Roland Dubois, speaking in German, and on the screen, it was being displayed visually in Japanese. And then this one will do Japanese to English.
It's working.
It's working. 今日はトーマスに誘われてここにやってきました。私たち日本人は英語を話さないので、いつも言葉の壁に悩まされています。でも、この技術を使うと、その壁がなくなり、より多くの皆さんとコミュニケーションが取れそうなので、とても感激しています。
So basically, what was interesting in this whole presentation was what I found is I'm putting two ideas here together in 10 minutes, but AI translation is never 100% accurate. And what I was speaking at the beginning was neither were human CART stenographers, but one of the ideas that I want to discuss is how do we have AI be used, but still enable a human to be involved to either clean up the AI or to improve the AI experience. So I had the opportunity to build something called Polly, P-O-L-L-Y. I was living in Tokyo and basically was attending a meetup that was being translated live into both English and Japanese. And I think listening to someone speak a language you don't understand is boring and confusing. This is also, if I'm deaf and I'm at your meetup or your event and you have no live captions, it's boring. And
can you take my sample?
So you'll probably fall asleep, or you're definitely not going to be engaged if you can't participate. So how can we improve the experience? One, you could hire a translator in this experience. And so this would oftentimes be very cumbersome. When I was living in Tokyo, if you have a translator, you basically have to first speak in English and then wait for the translator to process the English and then have that person say the same thing in Japanese. So basically a 10-minute presentation like what I'm doing right now would take at least 20 minutes because you have to at least account for speaking the same amount of words in another language. So really true inclusion, and this is going, just so broadly, is we would want everyone to be able to understand and participate in any event and in whatever language they need to do. So this is my Tokyo meetup. We would do this. And what we thought about was we're always aiming for 100% accuracy. Whether we were just translating my speech right now from English and we're using AI, we want 100% accuracy. If we're translating from English to Japanese, we still want 100% accuracy. And basically what I found living in Tokyo was when people would speak into Japanese, I think the Japanese captions were probably getting 90% accuracy, still not 100% accuracy, even for a Japanese person who is deaf. But the accuracy for someone reading those captions in English was really, really low, basically unusable. You couldn't follow the conversation. So Japanese to English, very flawed. So when we made Polly, the idea, I'm not going to show the demo because we don't have a lot of time, but we basically made a Google document that would take the live translation, the auto translation from Japanese to English, and a person, a human, would go in and be able to benefit from the AI, but then also be able to edit what the AI was doing. So how that would work for my meetup, for example, in the US, I would be the presenter in English. I had a human captioner, Mirabai Knight, in English. We worked with her for 11 years at our meetup. And then we had Kenji Yanagawa, who was a translator, could convert from English to Japanese. He's not a stenographer, so he couldn't type at the speed that he would need to improve the captions, but he could clean up the captions that were getting automatically translated. And here on the screen, basically, I think one of the goals we should always have is enable humans and AI to work together to make a great experience for everyone. And I think in the discussion, I want to say, how do we insert humans to always be a part of overriding or improving decisions made by AI to have a human touch? Because I think no matter any domain we talk about or any of the topics we've talked about, I fully support having AI to enable new possibilities, but I think as a design mechanism or as a discussion point, how do we have humans involved in that process? And since I have about 1 minute, I'm going to show you the Polly site. Basically, in our process, what would happen, I'm just showing visually here, but the Google document would show the two languages. Actually, on the screen, I'm showing English and Spanish because it's probably more familiar English-speaking world. But we had an example of when I said, "Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us at A11Y NYC today." A11Y NYC, that might be pronounced as ALI NYC, Accessibility NYC. This would be a typical thing for a automatic speech recognition tool to have a problem with because we're using an acronym. But our human captioner does a good job. We work with her, she knows this acronym, so she types that perfectly. But when we get into the Google document, there is a mistake in the Spanish. And so what happens in the Spanish is once we create or change the tense of the language, we can have that corrected in the Google document and then now displayed visually on the screen for someone reading it in Spanish, as just one simple idea of humans being involved in an AI process. There's my 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. This is, let me pin, there we go. Awesome presentation here. Very, very true that we need to keep humans in the loop and try for the best of both worlds, not just purely one or purely the other. Okay, so we've got now 45 minutes for the rest of the discussion here. I want to open it up to people. I know I've got certainly a couple of kind of open questions that could use attention, but if people had burning questions either for the panelists or just that they wanted to switch the group, please go ahead and you get to just unmute and speak out, or if you want to raise your hand and then Pierce will call on you and kind of moderate. But yeah, please go ahead.
So I like the first presentation because it benefits a lot of us that are totally blind, partially blind, and whatever it is. But is there like a site that you're gonna be posting so that way if some of us are interested, we can go in there and we can get some of this stuff, or you have to have a VR headset in order to do this? Or can you use another device besides of a VR headset, because not a lot of people can afford all this expensive VR equipment?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for the question. So a lot of our prototypes are in prototype phase, that because we are a research team, not necessarily industry group, but we do have first of all, as a professor at the university, I do have a homepage that we organize all of our completed and also ongoing research projects on my website so that you can see the live demos and links. And usually for things that we can open source, for example, both Cooker and also VR set, after we completely finish it, we're going to open source it on GitHub, and there will also be a link attached to my website as well. And I'm going to just put it here quickly so that you can, if you're interested in or folks are interested in, you can take a look. But for now, VR site is not really on it because we only finished the development and we didn't complete finish our evaluation yet. So we want to wait until everything is more mature so that we can announce it. But we are trying our best to open source things.
And Kevin, I would say as well that we have our website, xraccess.org. We have a resources page. So I'm sharing that, as well as our GitHub that has some of these things. Now, those are right now mostly focused on developers. But I think if there's interest in having kind of a collection of, for example, these different like AI tools like Picky, and we were just talking about, I think, Envision Companion before the event started. We can also add those there so that we have a repository of tools for blind users as well, because I think that would also be really useful. So we'll be sure to add those. And if people have suggestions, definitely post them in chat now, or you can email them to me at dylan@xraccess.org, and I'll make sure we get those on there as well.
Okay,
Hello,
thanks.
Hello, this is Jesse, just real quick. Yeah, these were really all good presentations, and I'm especially, like, for the first session, especially intrigued about the sort of live VR portion of that. The second presentation, I was thinking a lot about, you know, I've used PickyBot, I've used Be My Eyes, Seeing AI. And what Dylan had just mentioned was that I think, like I said, I thought they still called it Ally. but it's from the Envision group, and it's a live conversational AI. And I've been in a few of their sort of, they kind of have these monthly meetings, Zoom meetings, town hall type things. And like what I'm like, they currently work with the Envision glasses right now, as well as just an app on your phone. And like, I really wish that like that I've seen the Envision glasses, and they're using, I think, old Google Glass, which are really many years old now, and they are bulky and to me not very comfortable at all. Um, but you know, as someone who has the Meta glasses as well, um, you know, you're looking at like whether it's a museum or just something in general. Right now, this live conversational thing with AI for Ally, the thing that I think would be intriguing about this is for those who don't are unfamiliar with it, it's a live conversational AI, and they call it Ally because when you start up the app, it asks you a few different onboarding questions like, you know, what would you like me to know about you? What do you like? What do you not like? How do you want the AI to behave? But then you actually, it comes with 4 sample AI things that you can either further customize, or you can create your own AI and or your own ally. And what's nice about that is for different you know, for different needs within the same app, you could have different live conversational allies essentially. Maybe one that is geared toward how I prefer to have something described in a museum versus how I might want them to read something versus how I just want to converse about something. And it doesn't have to all involve the camera because it works as a live conversational chat bot too. So I posted a video in the link in the chat where I kind of demoed some of these things a few weeks ago. And you can use it like it's really open ended because you know you can have it use the camera and describe, you know, it'll take a picture of something, but you can also just, you know, whether you want to create like a, you know, you want to ask it a fact. I've used it to like, oh, what was that movie that I read, you know, that I watched 20 years ago, and I remember little vague bits of it, and it helped me remember the movie. Or I can do like a simple kind of like a almost like a D&D choose your own adventure sort of campaign. I could have it generate trivia. You could have it, you know, help you study for tests. I've used it for like I'm playing and practicing drums, so I could have one ally tell me, or I could tell it, you know, the songs and the type of music I like and what I've learned, and then it can give me better suggestions at my skill level, what it could recommend for me. But I know at these town halls, what they were talking about was eventually they want to get toward a live camera model, because right now you can say, hey, what am I looking at, or you know, what am I holding, or what does this say, or can you tell me, read me the directions? And you don't have to say it in a really specific syntax way, which is what I like about it. But they are working toward a live camera thing. So like you right now, it can only look at what's there when you take a picture. But eventually, you know, like hopefully we'll get to the point where, you know, oh, I dropped my keys on the floor, and I could say, hey, I'm going to pan my phone around. Let me know when you see my keys, or let me know when the gray Ford whatever arrives from my Uber or my Lyft, that kind of functionality. So if you could just have you combine live conversation and then these custom allies along with live video, um, when that finally hopefully happens, and if I would love to have them put it on a more modern pair of glasses, like the Meta glasses or something like it, and even having a computer version that just monitors your screen. I'm waiting for the day where that happens, where I can use it's also on allies on the web as well. And if it could just monitor my screen and my microphone, and I could just be playing a game or looking at a map or a diagram and just live chat with an ally to say, describe this image to me, or, oh, hey, let me know when my health gets below 50%, or what does that thing say above the door? I think that's where like ally is like one of the closest things I've seen. And once they get to the point where you can live video monitor or camera monitor, and if you combine that with glasses, that's sort of where I'm hoping things are going to go. And I'm hoping it happens sooner rather than later. So just a couple ideas out there. And I put a little item in for the third, a couple thoughts on that third presentation too. So I'll be quiet now.
Hey, it's Andy. If I can hop on to some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't used Ally myself, but I have been reading about it, and
Okay. I've been beta testing it for like a few months.
Cool. No, that's awesome, and I think that if it's something that you're talking about screen sharing with a game or something, and it being able to monitor all of that, wondering if you can integrate it in a particular app or have it as an extension or an add-on for things that already exist,
right,
would be wonderful. And
the app did just come out for Android, iOS, and the web as of Monday. Last Monday, so you can go play with it now. It's public.
I will.
Indeed.
Have you or anybody else in the meeting here utilized with ChatGPT the voice mode with the live camera? It's conversational. It's pretty phenomenal. I sat down the first night I figured out what it was, and had it give me like play-by-play live audio description of Mary Poppins, and it was so on point. It knew the characters' names, it knew all of this stuff. Now, then I tried it with Uncut Gems, and it was like, I don't know how to do this. So I think it was the fact that maybe it knew something about Mary Poppins or was trained on that.
This is Jesse. To my knowledge, I have played with the Google one a little bit, and currently, I think it has the same limitation that Ally does, is that it's only looking at the image when you tell it to. It can't just live monitor and let you know when things change, like when somebody enters the room, or if you're watching a movie. It's just telling you one moment in time. That's all it can do right now.
Yeah, you need to
and that's where Ally's at.
Yeah. And I like that. And with the GPT, it's, I was having it describe my room. I wanted to get a rug that matched my couch, and it was describing to me. And then my dog ran into frame, and it said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Oh, that's Ozzy. Hi, Ozzy." And then 10 minutes later, still doing it, the dog came in and like, "Oh, it's Ozzy. He's everywhere you want to be." So like, it's that sort of like fun and very personable interaction that, if that's something that we're talking about. Ally, what I was really intriguing about that, talking about being able to like having the different question prompts in the beginning when you launch the app for the first time, is setting those preferences on, who are you? What do you like? Are you an impatient person? That sort of thing. I don't know what the questions are. I'm just, but
yeah. And the other thing I will say as a limitation, it'll remember everything during a current session that you do, but they haven't built in like overall, like if, like let's say I was using a version of the Ally to do music tutoring, or like, drum lessons or something. It wouldn't, like if I started the app tomorrow, it wouldn't remember our conversation today, but that's something that they are working toward.
Yeah.
And you'd have to put it in your bio, basically, in the settings to give it long-standing information.
I think that, the more like machine learning like that incorporated into things that we will use a lot is important. Like going back to ChatGPT, I have enough conversations with it and use it for a lot of things, especially note-taking and brainstorming and things. And just for an example, I was asking it, there's an inaccessible audio software platform called Max MSP. And just as an aside, it's somebody that I've been bugging to make accessible for screen readers for a while. And I was talking to it, asking if they had any solutions, and that I talked to the company and they didn't want to prioritize it. And the way that it answered, it said, not making this accessible is lazy and ableist. And I was just like, this thing's listening to me way too much, where it's getting the character of myself in it. But that's what I like. And I really think that would be a fun and cool way of customizing something. Like I had said, like the example of maybe, entering, and you're in a first person game or something like that, and you want a description of the space. And, if it knew you enough, it could, automatically or just assume and predict what you might be asking and that sort of thing. And, I don't know how close we are for that to be open source or easy or cheap to obtain. We've talked a million times before about how expensive, some of the apps and the hardware that we would need to use to gain more access. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to dig into that, and anything else that anybody else would recommend to mess around with. I'm all about that.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
think
the one feature of Ally that I'm waiting for, is the more memory from session to session, so it does learn your subtleties like you were talking about.
Yeah.
but that does lead. This is Dylan. That leads to one of the questions I did want to discuss here, which is privacy, right? Is, when you tell the chat GPT, oh yes, this is my dog, so and so, who else then eventually kind of knows that information, right? How can we have confidence that the groups that run these models, at the base level, are they feeding the information into the AI in kind of like just a big amalgamation way, but then are they also, taking our information and specifically attributing it to us and knowing, okay, we, you've asked us to look at your bank statement, and now that's somehow going to end up in the hands of the developers, right? Which, as far as I know, is not necessarily happening, but it's hard to have, I know for me and a lot of people, it's hard to have confidence that that isn't happening without, for example, a lot of government oversight. And so I wonder if people have ideas about that or opinions about that, resources for people who are interested in that kind of thing, because I know that's been one of the sticking points for us in a lot of conversations about it.
I mean, I do, but I don't want to steal all the time.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, definitely encourage folks who haven't chatted yet to unmute and speak up. It's community discussion.
I could blab about this all day.
I wanted to add, I think I was curious for the max MSP because I'm a sound person. So Andy, I was wondering what your prompt was, because I want to see if I can get my chat GPT to say ableist.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
my prompt, I was going down this thing, wondering how I can make like Wise or Fmod, which is the audio middleware sound designers use to, to interact with making a game or something in Unity or Unreal, and that stuff's not accessible. And then I was asking, and then I said, well, what about Max MSP? And I've, Cycling 74, who's the company, doesn't even necessarily want to even talk further with me about this. And I'm a sound designer. That's like one thing that I've always wanted. And I was like, can this be made accessible from your knowledge? Because they're not going to be helpful. And that's kind of how it did. Like, not prioritizing accessibility is lazy and ableist. They should know better. Why not? Blind people should be in charge of sound and that sort of thing. So I don't know if it's just mimicking what I say. Try it out and
Okay.
and see how it feels. But yeah, and it's weird. So it'll give me that kind of back and forth. But what it won't do, and this is going back to what Dylan just said, it'll tell me what the back of the check is for me to sign, where I do my mobile deposit, but then it wouldn't tell me what the amount was for, because I needed to go through 2 checks and see which one was what. So it's like, I can't tell you how much this is for or who it's made out to. I'm talking about ChatGPT when I was using it. Now, Seeing AI would give me all of that information, but OpenAI won't. And also, I tried to get it to read me the cover of a book, and ChatGPT was like, it looks like it's a cover of a book. I can't give you any information. And I think that's because of IP or copyright laws and that sort of thing. And so it's like one thing to keep privacy of my bank statement or my mail or something like that, but to have this like barrier to a book, is like that's all because I think they're afraid of like, you know, regulations or something like that. And so like some of these regulations are taking away our access, but we also want to keep our privacy. And I will tell you, like, one of the reasons that's held me from getting the Meta glasses is because I don't trust Meta with a lot of my stuff. I don't want them reading my mail, but somehow I have no problem with Microsoft knowing it, you know? So there's really, I would love to have more transparency from these companies as to where these things go beyond like what the regular privacy statements are, you know?
Yeah, I also want to chime in about this privacy issue of AR, VR technologies and overall accessibility technologies. I feel like there is always a trade-off between, you know, what functionalities we can get and how we can better protect people's privacy sensitive data, including both the directly user sensitive data. For example, a blind user, if they're trying to take photos, get more information from GPT and so on, where do those data go? Who will be seeing that? There is also another layer I think people have discussed a lot in research domain and industry as well in terms of the bystanders privacy, that if, you know, by chance we capture someone else in that image, and then how do we deal with those data and so on. So I think there's definitely a trade-off in terms of, you know, how we should handle this. And I also find it's interesting in terms of the data access we have from the current AR VR devices. This is also some difficulty our lab has been experiencing now, is if you want to develop any AR VR applications, especially based on, for example, Quest and so on, right? We want to design more features to access the front camera so that we can better support, you know, people's safety, enhance mixed reality accessibility and so on, but also because of the privacy policy, I think a lot of these companies, for example, Meta, they disable the access for developers if all of these cameras and sensors and so on. I mean, probably for privacy reasons, but I also see there is this inconsistent in terms of when we are able to have access to these data and when not. Why not? For example, as Jesse and Andy mentioned, this eyelight application, right? So if you are trying to develop some specialized devices, maybe you're able to access the camera and do a bunch of things. But if as a commercial device, I think there is more restrictions on sensor access for developers and so on. So I think all of these could be interesting problems to discuss. I don't have any answers in terms of how we should like moving forward towards these, like what data we should access and what not. But I think sometimes we also need those data for accessibility purposes, for equity purposes, but also because of the privacy concerns, we are somehow banned from the access of these data. So there is definitely some barriers there, I guess.
Yeah, and it's definitely, there's a question about where do the platforms and things come into this, right? Because I was reading a paper, and I'll see if I can find it and put it in chat, that was about a system that could theoretically, you know, let's say you're wearing an AR headset in the hospital. There's this system that would like automatically blur the faces of everyone except the person you were talking to, just to the application level, not like wouldn't blur your vision, but it would use an understanding of like who were you talking to, you know, in terms of proximity and like lingering focus on person. And once it had that criteria that, oh yes, you're actively talking to this person, it would let other applications access the facial data of that. Which I thought was really interesting, because, you know, you could imagine going around a hospital wanting to be able to have, you know, the doctors and the nurses maybe offer up and say proactively, you can use my face for face recognition, but protect the privacy of the other people that are just patients, right? And applications like that, yeah, require a certain amount of interplay and kind of deep tech access. And right now, I think there's a lot of kind of people in academia that have some interesting ideas about this. There's the companies that are kind of doing mostly what they want, and we need to take their word on it. I think in EU, there's more kind of strict regulation and enforcement to a certain extent, but it's a complicated subject.
I'm just going to throw out there too that my this was more like back in simpler times of just querying our Google search results, but I honestly feel like to trust almost any company, it's almost at this point of like one thing that people used to do was when they perform the search, use a plugin that would also do 10 other searches, right? And then it's like, if you're not giving so much false data with it and you picture, I also watch a lot of true crime, but I'm like, if you picture being like, you have to report on like, what if someone does get access to that information, if there's not just like fake information also in there, I mean, for someone to say they're protecting your data and or keeping it private, I feel like we live in a world where you're like, if you really trust any of these companies to properly do that and or not like do that, I don't trust that, you know? So I'm like, other than like obfuscating via like fake data being mixed in with real data, I personally don't have a trust in any company maintaining it at this point.
Yeah, this is Jesse again, and I'm kind of in the mind of like, I try to do as much as I can, for privacy related things, but it's like, a lot of the free software or free websites, Outlook or Gmail or whatever, it's like, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And so I don't necessarily trust, as much as I use Microsoft, as much as I use Google, I'm really not a big Meta or especially Facebook fan, but I do have the glasses, and I kind of just resign myself to the fact that, well, where we are, I'm not going to overshare, but I'm going to, like, if I want really access to these types of services, I have to give up at least some of my information, which is unfortunate, but like privacy is like, I don't want to say privacy is dead, but cheekily, but
But there's some places that we give our information, like a grocery store, right? They know what you're buying, they know where you are, they all that sort of thing. If you're using Instacart or your rewards card or whatever, let's say that you were to have an app or something where you go into Aldi's or like HEB or something, and you have your shopping list ahead of time, and it could tell you where to go, either using like VPS or whatever, or even say you bought this last time. It's in this aisle now, and go down this way and that sort of thing. Either using your glasses or your camera on your phone or whatever. That's something where I'm willing to allow that transparency of my life because of its convenience. And unless you're paying cash and you're not giving your ID or your like rewards card or whatever, they kind of already know it. And so there are certain things, there are like certain environments and worlds where I'm totally cool with making those concessions.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like I use Instacart all the time. Maybe I'll go to CVS or the gas station to pick something up, but I just get the delivery because, wandering around a grocery store when you're blind, it's a big time waster, and it's frustrating, and I always feel like I'm in other people's way and stuff. But that autonomy, which is something that Dylan, you had written about, being something that could be a blind in the blind future, and I feel like we're actually really pretty close to that. But that developing something like that tool, who knows if like Lockheed Martin or whatever, that like somebody that shouldn't have that technology is going to take that and exploit it. I hate to sound paranoid, but I mean that this is really kind of just like the whole conversation.
Black Mirror has taught us anything.
Right. Totally. I would recommend following Envision on social media, ENVISION. Literally about a week or two ago, they posted a video that for a product that I think it's building on Ally or something, and it's not with the Meta glasses right now, but I think it's with the upcoming glasses.
Mm-hmm.
They did an exact video demo, and I don't know how realistic or how far out it is, but they did exactly that type of thing where like they had a woman shopping in a grocery store, and it like literally guided them audibly to like where the apples were, and then she would hold up an apple like, oh, you're holding a Granny Smith apple.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want this one. And then I want to go check out. Yeah, follow them on social media, because curious, they might be coming out with some neat stuff pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left here. I want to open it up to somebody that hasn't had a chance to speak yet and see what else is on folks' mind and what needs discussion from the brain trust we got here. Oh, Terry, were you trying to say something? It looked like you.
Yeah, I am. You heard me there. That's good. I wasn't sure if my speaker was on. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
So I'm Terry from New Zealand, and I'm working with a PhD student at the University of Canterbury here, looking at augmented reality to help people like me with macular degeneration. The point I was interested in with the talk about the subtitles. Subtitles to me are the worst thing. You know, I can watch a movie, but as soon as it turns to subtitles, I can't read them. And also in the movies these days, often they'll do a screenshot of a phone or something, and you're supposed to be able to read what's on the phone in the middle of the movie to get the plot and that. So that was one comment. But really interested too about the session there about using cooking and that. And of course, the hardest thing there is digital stoves, because anything digital is the hard one. I was trying to get on a flight yesterday, and I checked in until I got to the page where it said, "Have you got a gun or not?" And I didn't want to click the wrong button. So that's a couple of comments from me.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry. Anybody else that has been waiting to chime in? Larry, go ahead.
Hey there, Larry Goldberg here. People in New York should be interested in the fact that the New York City Bar Association just put together a subcommittee on AI and the impact on people with disabilities. And we're going to be recording a podcast tomorrow. It'll probably start streaming in a couple of weeks. And this is a group of powerful lawyers in the city who are kind of far behind in understanding what AI's impact is on the legal profession. But they've also, in a number of cases, proposed legislation before the New York State Legislature that has passed. So we're going to be getting together with some of our well-known friends in the area of AI, like Yuta Treviranus and Ariana Abalafia from CDT, and start trying to come up with some ideas on actual tangible actions we can take that promote the benefits as well as help avoid some of the hazards on AI and accessibility. So stay tuned for that. All the information will be public, so you'll have a chance to see it all yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll take the opportunity to boost as well that we are working on the accessibility in the metaverse working group of the Metaverse Standards Forum. We are working on trying to create a kind of W3C WCAG level accessibility standards for XR. And we meet on that every Tuesday, every other Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, including tomorrow is the next one. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the group here in the chat, and feel free to shoot me an email, because there's a lot that goes into trying to determine whether or not any of these systems is accessible, especially once AI enters the picture. So if you're interested, definitely feel free to reach out.
Hi,
So I guess I'll chime in.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Carmen. Carmen, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see a put up your hand button. So I can take turns, but really briefly, my name's Kareem Merchant. And I just had a really quick question, which is really more of an open question and maybe not suitable for today, given the breadth of stuff we've already talked about. But, you know, acknowledging the fact that a lot of people have multiple disabilities, how do you see the potential challenges for the sort of technology that's been discussed today with, say, cognitive disabilities, and the need to, you know, be consistent or to contextualize maybe more and things like that? Are there specific things that need to be brought into the conversation? Is that being attacked? Are there initiatives in that? Are you looking at it? I'm just curious.
Hey, it's Andy. I could say one thing is being blind with ADHD and then working a lot with sound. I've come to understand that having options for people that have like maybe need audio processing accommodations and volume control and that sort of thing, that going off the premise of being able to customize the kind of access that you want and giving options for people to kind of control those sort of things, either in like in a VR experience or an immersive, like even like an escape room or something like that. Employing, let's face it, accommodations conflict, and sometimes the result is kind of fun and cool, and then other times it's just going to be a challenge, first off, developing the accommodations for certain different disabilities, but then like combining them in a way that other people might need multiple accommodations at once. I'd love to hear if anybody else has anything, because it seems to be a real challenge, and I could see it being even harder.
Yeah, just want to echo what Andy has been saying. This is Yuhang here. So we didn't work too much in my research lab on multi type of disabilities, but we did start thinking about how we can better support people with ADHD via AI technology. So one of our ongoing project is how can we better enable people with ADHD to customize video content so that we can remove different distractors in the video. For example, can you simplify the background? Can you adjust enable them to adjust the captions? Can you zoom into certain content they are interested in, and so on? But I think it's a great point to also consider what if people have multiple disabilities, and then to what extent people can customize things. And there is also another thing we've been thinking about is when we talk about customizations, because there is a wide range of flexibility that people can customize. And for people with ADHD, the feedback we get is if the customization is too complex and it also overload people. And then what would be the good balance we can do there? Should we provide some optimal combinations to recommend to people and then provide further customizations? Or should we open up this full agency to people so that they can customize everything? So that's also something we are looking into.
I just want to chime in that I think I was the only one here that made us look at a WCAG success criterion, unfortunately, but it does dovetail into, I think, what Larry was talking about too, of like working with lawyers and think in getting into the reality of getting people to make changes to technology or defining what people need to do. We had a really interesting discussion with I mentioned the Fable person in my 10 minutes, but we had a presentation at a meetup this month, benchmarking usability in the cognitive accessibility frontier from the founders of Fable. And I did find it very interesting that I know that cognitive has been really hard area to quantify, and it's really been the one pointed out in the web content accessibility guidelines that they've done work on that and they continue to do work on that, but it is it can be more difficult. So I found it interesting in their presentation talking about usability studies, and just wanted to throw that out there as a resource too, that there's certain items which I feel like are easier to say sort of technically you have to do this, and then there are items where obviously, as we've been talking about, like testing with real people, getting feedback, somehow making sure the research and the sort of corporate work all comes together and we learn what are the right design patterns. I found their talk really interesting just because they are trying to make that into more of a quantifiable scale not on the research side, but more on the corporate side. So might be of interest as well for cognitive.
There's also something that I know this could be a 20-day conversation, but a lot of the words and terms that, especially those of us that do research, maybe for like institutions or public funding, we can't use those anymore in grant proposals or maybe even like public facing content. And that's something that I think we're all going to need to just come to terms with or figure out alternative ways of describing things. I know that on the whole forbidden words, that term's accommodation isn't on that list. So we could at least be using that. But there's just so many things now where some AIs have been programmed to acknowledge the word disability and inclusion and access and that sort of thing. And if that's something that, you know, if we want to use any of those tools to help us navigate, you know, those things, especially if we're trying to do research or even in school talk about those sort of things, like we're really in bad shape. I have friends that have lost State Department grants because their whole things were about disability and inclusion and access and that sort of thing. So it's like, I don't know, Larry, if that's something that the Bar Association wants to talk about with you, but I think that it's something that I think we all need to
Yes,
start
it
facing.
absolutely came up immediately in those forbidden words. What's the first one alphabetically? Accessibility.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're looking into that.
Yep.
But accommodation isn't on there, folks. So that's positive at least.
Yeah,
Well,
it's. Oh, go ahead.
no, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Paul Jackson. I have a PhD in computer engineering that I got in 1998. I did like 20 years of research at Boeing in augmented and virtual reality. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis though in 93. And now I'm living in Tacoma instead of Seattle. And I'm a part of the Seattle Swedish multiple sclerosis talk. And I've been interjecting some things in the chat. And so I've been working with this company, Mixed Reality. And Jeff Raynar is the CEO of that. And he's teamed up with the Swedish group to create a meta application for those that are involved with MS. And it gives you like a simulation of a studio. There's 3D kind of games that you can do to give you like reaching to increase your mobility and things like that. But I've been following the disability side for a long time. I remember like 20 years ago, MIT had a discussion called ABLE, and he had her was a person on the panel. The guy who was like the CEO oh shit, came in the company. It was a company that had a wheelchair that can go up the stairs, and another gentleman who was a disabled commentator, and I think he wrote for like New York Times, and he's in a wheelchair, and he put lights on his wheelchair in the sense that he wanted to make sure he could customize and make the disability his own. And so I thought that was fascinating. So I've been trying to find that link. I know it was like 20 years ago. I did find it on YouTube, but the MIT ABLE was something I think is very powerful. But as far as disabilities, I hate to think that with new administration that they're going to cut that funding. It doesn't make any sense, but that's unfortunately what the world is, or what the U.S. at least is devolved into. And with that, I'll just I'll give my time. Okay. God bless you guys. It was a great discussion. I'm wondering, the chat, can somebody email me in the chat? Because I'm on my phone right now. So I don't know,
Yeah,
Dylan,
Paul,
to the members.
we'll be putting the recording of this talk as well as the chat and some notes and things as well on the event page, probably
Right.
sometime later this week.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi,
Awesome. Well,
hello.
oh, go ahead. I think
Hi.
last comments before we should probably wrap up.
All right, cool. Hi, I'm Akila here, and I'm from New Zealand. And yeah, actually, I work with Terry. And yeah, just to add a couple of things regarding the customizability when it comes to all the accessibility stuff. So yeah, I'm doing my PhD research, and when I'm looking for at my first phase, when I'm looking to identify the requirements of individuals that have blindness and low vision, one thing that came up to me is usually the progressive how the vision loss get progressively difficult for people. Like even they use one device at a particular time, it usually doesn't suit for them maybe 5 years time. So developing a specific device for a specific task at a one point won't be going to be helpful for them in a later period. So I actually followed the work from Professor Yuhang also for closely regarding the flexibility that there are solutions like FlexiC provided. And I think one thing would be one interesting thing will be to assess continuously, maybe through maybe a VR or AR device, to assess the visual conditions, maybe as time goes by, for people to maybe provide more adaptable solution. So then, because the VR devices are actually expensive, that there's no point of switching devices as they go along. So I think that could be again something useful for people. And yeah, and one more thing about that audio subtitles stuff. Again, when I talk with people, one person said to me that when she goes to cinemas, reading subtitles again like doesn't work for her in foreign movies, and she has asked from the people in the theater that is it possible to get a audio version of subtitles for her. So I'm not sure whether is there anything like that. So maybe like in a cricket match where you can wear a small device in your ear where you can hear the radio commentary, something like that. I'm not sure whether there's something available like that that can directly translate the subtitles for the person. Yeah, something could be again interesting. I'm not sure. So yeah, that's all. That's the comments from me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Akila. Yeah, I know there are certain places in the US where you can get go to a movie theater and get little, audio description headsets that can work with it. But certainly a good spot for wearable devices and AI to potentially play a part. But I think for now we are just about at time. I wanted to invite anybody who will be around at the end of the month. We're actually holding a special event on Sunday, which is unusual for us, but this is going to be with the Helping Hands, which is a very large, I think 25,000 person last I was talking, deaf community that is based out of the VR platform VRChat. And so I'm going to be doing a panel with them. So I posted that link there. And yeah, I think thank everybody so much for coming out. We will be, as I said, posting the video of this talk as well as the notes in the chat to our event page for this event. And yeah, I think we'll definitely look forward to seeing you in the next one. Pierce, any closing words for us?
No, that was great. Thanks everyone.
All right. Thanks everybody.